Happy Christmas, everyone. It's time for the NFL picks and predictions from yours truly for the 2025 Christmas edition this time. And what better way to start us off than talking about last week's picks before we get under with week 17. So this week didn't exactly go as planned, as you guys can see over here. The Rams losing to the Seahawks. What an insane game. The best game of the week. No questions asked, like just the insanity near the end of that game and stuff like that. The calls, the different plays, the two-pointer, everything there was insane. Now, Rams and Seahawks, as I told you, I originally said Seahawks, and then I went with my heart with the Rams, but both teams did quite well, and that was down to, overtime, down to the wire. Let's be real here. So, whoever picked whatever, you did good. It was a solid pick on either side. Unfortunately, at the end of the day, the Rams did lose, so we're going 0-1 going in to the rest of the week. Now, the Eagles do beat the Commanders to no one's great shock, and the Bears do beat the Packers to some people's shock. Now, of course, because the Eagles beat the Commanders, even though the Packers ended up losing, it doesn't matter for the Cowboys officially. The Cowboys are now out with that Eagles win. It sucks. But let's be real, were we really going to take that team with that defense and go all the way? Not with the coaching staff on the defense especially. It wasn't going to happen. We might just have the best offense in the league. I could make that argument quite easily. But offense isn't all that wins you a football game. Let's be real. So, there's many factors and many components to winning a football game, especially the playoffs. So, realistically, it was all right. And speaking of which, the Cowboys lost to the Chargers in the end anyways. So, once again, this was just not our year, wasn't our week especially, and it is what it is. And I don't think a team that needs to rely on the outcomes of other teams' victories necessarily should be in the playoffs or are going to do well in the playoffs regardless. Crazier things have happened. However, in my mind, there is a bit of a contention for the fact that some teams that are far obviously weaker than some of the better teams in the league end up getting to the playoffs because of how the playoff picture works in the NFL versus teams that may or may not, should be there versus the ones that deserve to be there, right? So, with that being said, as I picked the Bears with the hope, they did win, but it doesn't matter in the end, and then the Cowboys ended up losing. Then we move on to the Bills beat the Cleveland Browns to no one's great surprise. The Chiefs losing to the Tennessee Titans. I'll be honest with you. I thought that was quite shocking. I said, yeah, okay, the Chiefs might be what I've been saying for 2 seasons. And Mahomes might be injured. And this, that, and the other thing. But really, to the Titans, you lose your quarterback? Seriously. This team is worse than the Cowboys. I'm telling you guys that right now. Because if we lost Dak, we could still make magic happen with anybody because we have such a great offensive line. As far as Kansas City, seriously, you lose Mahomes and you can't even beat the Titans? I'm sorry, that's just pretty fucking sad. It's sad. It just is. Then we move on to the Bengals versus the Dolphins. Bengals do end up winning, so that wasn't a bad pick. The Jets lost to the Saints, but that was a loser versus a loser, let's be real, unfortunately. As someone who liked the Drew Brees Saints, I feel bad. But at the end of the day, these two teams are in the bottom for a reason, so that was anybody's game, really. The Vikings do end up beating the Giants. Though, that being said, I know people who have picked the Giants because the Vikings were so wishy-washy all year long that it's hard to say, oh yeah, they've got this. You know what I mean? Then we lose 2 in a row with Tampa Bay. I can't pick Tampa Bay confidently for the rest of the year. These guys were supposed to be up here. They were supposed to be a top 5 team. And they are not even a top 10 team. They are losing, what happened? Am I missing something? How many injuries do these guys have? Did they lose their entire main roster or something? Because I must be missing some information because the Carolina Panthers beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And then the Jaguars coming out of nowhere to defeat the Broncos, the very powerful Broncos. That was a shocker. I still would have picked the Broncos in this one, but yeah, wow. Okay. Any given Sunday, as they say, so let's go with that. Then Falcons over Cardinals. This was Bird versus Bird, and realistically could have gone either way with these two teams being trying to make their way to the middle of the pack and just not being that good. Then the Lions do end up losing to the Steelers. Wow. What happened to these Detroit Lions? I have no idea. I have no idea. I saw the cracks and the problems with the Kansas City team last year. Nobody believed me. I didn't see it with the Lions. I did not see this happening to the Lions this year. What changed? What has made this chemistry just... It's oil and water right now. It is not meshing whatsoever, and I just don't know what's going on. The Texans beating the Raiders is no one's great shock. Patriots beating Baltimore. While Baltimore put up a decent fight, you know what I mean? The Patriots. Baltimore is always inconsistent, and the Patriots had the easiest schedule, so they've been saving all their energy. You know what I mean? They've had to face maybe two good teams all year long, and it's just like, yeah, this was going to be an easy W for them. And then the Colts lose to the 49ers. Now, everybody said it was crazy to get old grandpa out there on the field, but let me tell you guys, I won $50 on that pick because I said that the 45-year-old quarterback coming in there was actually going to make something happen, and they wouldn't have put him in if they didn't think something was going to happen. Everyone thought I was crazy, and I won $50 on that one. I'm just saying, you know. So, Indianapolis Colts beating the 49ers was unlikely to happen, but they still put up a solid game at the very least in the first half until the 49ers started coming back and stuff like that and really starting to destroy that defense. But outside of that, it was pretty solid up to that point. So it is what it is. Now that being said, let's move on to Christmas week with week 17. All right. Make your jokes while you can that the Cowboys may ruin my Christmas dinner. That being said, where they're officially out, realistically, this is just all gravy at this point. Quite literally. And that's not a Christmas pun. I'm just saying. I get to watch some football on Christmas Day. All right. Cool. You know, that's my stance on it, in all honesty, because this game is realistically a non-game. It truly is. And so, potentially, I get to see my Cowboys just win a game, sort of like watching an exhibition game. And at this point, is anybody really going to pick the Washington Commanders over the Cowboys just because we lost a playoff spot? I'm just curious. Are you? Because I don't know about that. Unless Dallas decides to sit our entire offense, then I really don't see it happening, but stranger things have happened. Then we are going to pick the Lions, hoping that they still want something here by the end of the season over the Minnesota Vikings because they are too wishy-washy for me. Same with picking the Broncos over the Chiefs because the Chiefs are absolutely terrible, and just because the Broncos lost to a relatively decent team in the Jaguars, I'm not convinced that they won't come out swinging. So these three picks I'm quite confident in, especially the Texans pick following that over the Chargers. Now the Ravens pick over the Packers. That's an interesting one because the Ravens, of course, just lost, but so did the Packers. I think depending on what type of Ravens team shows up, that seems to be the answer every week or the question every week, will they show up to play? Then I think the Packers are in trouble. But it is what it is. It just depends on what team shows up with that one. I think that's an honest, the first coin flip pick so far this week is, do you go Packers or Ravens? I think it's a 50-50 shot with that one. Then Bengals over Cardinals for obvious reasons. Steelers over Browns for more obvious reasons. Then this is a fun one because it's a 50-50, but the Titans are feeling good after beating the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm sure they're feeling really good about themselves. So they're probably going to come out swinging like, yeah, we're in the bottom with you, Saints. You know, you beat up on the Jets, but we beat Kansas City. Even though Kansas City's nothing to talk about, it still feels like a statement. You know, anybody can say, I beat the Giants. I beat the Panthers. I beat the Jets. But can you say you beat the Chiefs? Just because we know they're not that good doesn't mean that the statement doesn't hold more weight than the other ways I mentioned. You know what I'm saying? So I'm going with the Titans on this one because they're feeling good right now. They're probably feeling really good in that locker room. So then Colts over Jaguars because even though the 49ers ended up coming back and doing some really heavy damage to that defense, I think everybody was shocked, other than myself, surprisingly so, by the plays of a 45-year-old quarterback. Let's be real. You know, he came out there, he came swinging, he came ready to play, and I'm just saying that everyone else was shocked while I was sitting there going like, if he was going to be 45 and no good, they would have grabbed some 20-year-old kid from a college team, you know. if he wasn't going to be able to do something. And obviously he did some damage, scoring 27 points. So let's go. Let's go Colts over Jaguars. I think that's an one of those Hail Mary, an underdog pick. But it's the only way to win another week this year is to go with a couple of those, right? So some people think that the Detroit Lions is one of those. Same with the Bengals, but definitely the Colts pick. So I'm going with the Colts. Miami Dolphins over Buccaneers. Also, some people consider that one, but Tampa Bay has been letting me down in these last few weeks. I just don't trust them anymore. Miami's not that good, but obviously Tampa Bay is not really anything to talk about either. So that's where we're going. Patriots should be able to beat up on the Jets without much issue there, unless they don't care anymore. There is that problem here at the end of the last 2 weeks. I haven't seen the playoff picture, so whether New England at this point is ready to, usually it's the last week, which is now a week 18. It used to be this week 17. Now it's week 18. Depends on who sits out what and where, right? So I'm not exactly sure what New England is planning on doing. This pick may or may not change. Unlikely to change because it's still the Jets, but depends on who's being rested even this early on as far as week 17 goes. Then we jump over to Seahawks over Carolina. Pretty obvious choice there. Giants over Raiders because we never pick the Raiders. Followed up by Bills, 49ers, and Rams to subsequently beat the Eagles, the Bears, and the Falcons. Now, 49ers over the Bears, I have a 2-possession easy. I'm going to be betting outside of that, personally on that one, to make up some moolah for the 49ers over the Bears, because people are thinking like the Bears, people are seeing this as like a 55-45 split, and I'm saying no, 49ers are going to do a 2-possession win over the Bears, easy. So look forward to that. Buffalo Bills over the Eagles. I think that's a coin flip because I think the Eagles are hungry. They want it, but maybe they're resting on their laurels knowing they've secured their playoff position. Like I just said about the Patriots, where the Eagles have secured their playoff position, maybe they don't care. Maybe they'll rest everybody. Maybe they don't want that extra win. So regardless of that, the Bills, however, let's go beat up on the Eagles. Why not? Right? So I got the Bills for that solid reason alone. Philadelphia might rest on their laurels where, they don't need to win the next 2 games to do anything. And the Bills, however, I believe they still need that losing the next 2 games is still not really an option for them. I don't think they're locked in yet. Not 100% sure on that. It's right around Christmas time, as you guys know, so I haven't been able to keep up with all the statistics as of this week. So, and then finally, as I said, Rams over Falcons, kind of obvious there. So those are the picks and predictions for the Christmas week. What do you guys think? Let me know down in the comment section down below. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe as always. And we'll see you guys back here after the holidays. I hope you guys have a very Merry Christmas, Happy Christmas, Boxing Day, Christmas Eve, however you choose to celebrate it. Different people have different ways of doing it, but as long as you have, people who love you, good food, good drink, good family, good times and all that fun jazz, that's all that really matters, being surrounded by those who love you. So hopefully you're experiencing that this holiday season. So with that being said, we'll talk to you guys later. Have a good one and enjoy some football. See you later.